Sorry, good evening, everyone. Want to call the meeting to order for the Oxnard Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee for February 25th, 2025. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call and posting of the agenda, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Perrello.
Chair MacArthur.
Here.
Committee Member Perez.
Here.
Committee Member Perallo.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the kiosk at City Hall, the Oxnard Public Library, the city administrative offices, and on the city's website on Thursday, February 18th. Thank you.
City Clerk, do we need to address, we're starting a little late because the other meeting ran over?
No, we don't.
No? Okay.
Okay. Okay, can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Place your hand on your heart. Ready to begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is public comments for items not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we do not have any speakers in person or virtually.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And the only item is the approval of the minutes of the January 11th, 2025 Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee meeting. Do any members have any questions or comments? Yes,
I do. I make a motion to approve the minutes, but I just want to make a very good clarification. Items on future agendas, it states Member Perallo requested information on sober living. I believe I requested information on all types of housing that can be done at convicts, emancipated youth, drug rehab, that kinds of stuff. So not simply sober. So catch the whole enchilada is what I was looking for. I don't know if the rest of them remember that or.
Yeah, I remember that. Just with that addition, I second. And if we can get a vote.
Thank you. Committee Member Perallo.
Yes.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes,
Committee Member Perez.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is item D1 from the Housing Department, 5-year Public Housing Agency plan, annual PHA plan and capital fund program, 5-year action plan for low rent public housing. The recommendations that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Economic Development Committee recommend that the Board of Commissioners, one, hold a public hearing to receive comments concerning the 5-year Public Housing Agency, otherwise known as PHA plan, the 2025 annual PHA plan, the capital fund, 5-year action plan, and the 2025 capital fund budget. And number 2, adopt a resolution, A, approving the 5-year Public Housing Agency plan and the 2025 annual PHA plan for the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard, B, authorizing and directing the chair to execute the Department of Housing and Urban Development Public Housing Agency Certification Compliance Form, certifying the Housing Authority's compliance with federal policies and procedures. C, authorizing the Housing Director to execute and submit all reports, documents, and all other certifications required to comply with policies and procedures of the Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding the 5-year PHA plan and the 2025 annual PHA plan. D, approving the capital fund 5-year action plan and the 2025 capital fund budget. And E, authorizing the Housing Director to accept and expand the funds as indicated in the capital fund 5-year action plan and the 2025 capital fund budget. Any members have any questions of staff on this item?
I do.
Go.
First, thank you, Brenda, for a really well done report. I'm curious, as I was reading the goals and objectives, I have a couple of questions regarding these goals and objectives particularly. The first question that I have is, this is helpful just to kind of get a sense of where we're at and what the progress is. How often do we typically receive updates on the progress of our goals and objectives in meeting those, meeting those goals?
Okay. Greetings, Brenda Lopez, Interim Housing Director. Yes, thank you for the question. On the goals, right now we are first starting our next 5-year fiscal period. So what we do is we outline our overarching goals and objectives for the next 5 fiscal years. On an annual basis, we will come back to the board and we will provide an update on each goal and each objective. And we will also communicate if we are recommending any significant changes to our policies. The goals and objectives are established by looking at the strategic goals of the Department
Ms. Lopez, can you hold on 1 second? Did you find that, Mr. Perello? Mr. Pearl is looking for his hearing aid.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, glad you found it. Sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Lopez, to
Oh, that's okay.
interrupt. I was just going to ask the officer to see if he could help. Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Lopez, go right ahead.
Okay. So the goals and objectives are aligning with the strategic goals of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So what we do is we look at our local city community goals, the needs of our community, our participants, and then we look at the overarching goals of the government, and we try our best to align, obviously because those are the funding priorities. But yes, we will come every year, we'll come back and we'll provide an update of the previous year and what are we going to undertake the next year so that we can be on track to meet our goals.
Great, thank you. I have two more questions, actually three more questions. The next question is regarding goal number 2, which is expand family self-sufficiency program located on page 15. In the objective, it states, the objective is expand the scope and types of services offered to participants. For example, job training and educational programs that will increase self-sufficiency and income generation. Here it says the OHA facilitates ESL classes and digital literacy courses in partnership with the Oxnard Adult School. Is that something that currently still exists? And if so, how is this information typically advertised?
Yes, so these, the goals and objectives you're referring to is us reporting back on the fiscal year that ends on June 30th of 2025. So for the past 5 years, absent COVID, when we unfortunately had to go dark on a lot of our programs, we have been working on providing ESL, access to ESL classes. And the way we advertise it is these are mostly targeted at our public housing residents and also our Section 8 program participants. So we do a twofold marketing strategy. One is obviously with the local projects. We do bulletins, flyers to the community through our resident services program and coordinator. And for our Section 8, because it's a larger program, we do mass mailings where we let them know that the classes are going to be available. We provide the times, and they're at no cost. It is part of our resident self-sufficiency efforts, but really we contain it to the program participants.
Great, thank you. My next question is similar to that same objective. It says here in fall 2022, the OHA launched its scholarship program, which has been awarding scholarships annually to youth who are pursuing higher education and whose family is a public housing or Section 8 program participant. And I'm just curious when applications typically open and how many people are typically selected for that scholarship.
So we usually select anywhere between 3 to 5 participants to receive them. This scholarship program is on a smaller scale. And the reason for that is that we do the fundraising, ourselves, if you will, or our staff will we'll work with local banks to see if they will sponsor staff. We'll do like little bit of baking sales. We'll just basically be trying to raise funds. So we usually have 3 to 5 youth that are awarded. I will need to check on this year. I know that with the departure of our housing director, we might not have it this coming year, but usually around August, we'll start the promotion of the scholarship program. And again, we really focus on Section 8 and public housing families.
Yeah, just to follow up, how much is typically distributed to scholarship recipients?
I know that to the best of my recollection, last year, the last awards were between $1,500 to $3,500. And then we also had a couple of donations of laptops. So it just depends on what we're able to fundraise.
Great, that's amazing. My last question that I have is really around PHA Goal 4, which is the objective is to increase street outreach and case management located on page 18. And it says here that street outreach services have been expanded throughout OHA's jurisdiction. And I'm just curious what areas this outreach is particularly happening in.
And, sorry, can you repeat for me on which goal are we?
So that's PHA Goal 4 under Build a Navigation Center on page 18.
Oh, yes. So on the street outreach, this is with our homeless services coordinator. So what we're doing is anytime we have different locations that we go to throughout the city, but especially whenever we get reports from the community, Salvation Army, Mercy House, or homeless prevention coordinators, we get information when there's activity in certain areas of the city. This is throughout the entire city of Oxnard. What we do is we contact our outreach team and we do outreach, meaning we go by there, we try to talk to individuals who seem to be experiencing homelessness. Our goal is to try to connect them to services, encourage them to go to One Stop, encourage them to work with Salvation Army, Mercy House. So basically, we don't have necessarily only one area where we go to, we go all over the city of Oxnard. And I know a lot of it's driven from where we see a little bit of more concentration of individuals that might benefit from the services.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'll be in touch. I know that there's some recommendations from community members about support in particular areas in District 6, so thank you for.
Yes, so send them our way. We definitely respond right away. And again, we have an excellent homeless services coordinator on staff that has made a big difference on that.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Ms. Lopez, just had a quick follow-up. What was I know you received some public input, particularly, I think they verbalized some suggestions to you. Just if you can just summarize what, if there was a theme that you observed.
Yeah, so usually what we do is anytime we we make any changes to our policies, or we have what we call significant updates to policies, we do publish them for public comment, but we also have our staff do presentations, and we invite both public housing residents and Section 8 program participants. We didn't receive any objections to all of the information that we presented, although most of it is mandated changes by the federal government, but we did receive a total of 11 comments, and most of them were honestly more like questions. For example, they had very specific personal questions. If I have Social Security, how is that going to get calculated? Is that going to affect me? If I'm a seasonal employee, how are you guys going to calculate income? Are you going to project it, or are you going to look back? We had questions about if you guys get other awards, for example, Choice Grant, can you guys use that money instead of using our capital fund money to make some of the repairs to our properties? So a lot of the questions are excellent questions from our participants. Most of them are specific to the site where they live. Obviously, always looking for ways that we can improve their site and how can we bring more funding. But a lot of them were about how do we treat income, how are we going to treat it, what repairs can be done to our properties, is there any other assets available? And then some also about fair housing rights. That really wasn't for the housing authority, but the question was how can we connect our residents to services? So we received a lot of comments, but I think it was more of just ongoing concerns as far as the program, not particularly with the proposed changes.
That's good. Thank you so much, Ms. Lopez. Councilmember Pardo, do you have any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, and I want to thank you now. I appreciate Ms. Lopez when you took some of my questions earlier off the phone call. Thank you. I think piggybacking somewhat on Councilmember Perez's question, on page 5 of 8 of the staff report, which is page 18 of the staff report, we're talking about the PHA Goal 3, which is a VASH program. And it has to do, my question specifically is, I'll read the line, second line. In addition, the Oxnard Housing Authority has allocated 13 project-based VASH vouchers to the Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation's Dolores Huerta Gardens project. My question specifically, are these specifically for veterans? And the reason I ask that, I know that I've asked in the past and I was informed, this is considered a farm worker housing. So you have to be farm worker to be there. And my understanding is with the veterans, there is not a requirement the veteran be a farm worker. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the Dolores project, the farm worker requirement is for certain units. There's actually 15 in that project that are for veterans. And out of the 15, we're going to subsidize 13 of the 15. They do not have the farm worker requirement. Those only have the veteran requirement. They must qualify for the VASH program, which is managed through the VA clinic.
And along that line, if we have the 13 and we don't have 13 applicants, do these sit waiting for veterans? Are they held in abeyance simply for the veterans, as this might lead one to believe?
Correct. So these are specifically for veterans. They must, they're designated for the VASH program. We cannot, if there's no one that we can assist, unfortunately, they'll sit there until we find someone. But we do start working with in this case, with the VA clinic, we've been working with them for probably close to a year in conversations of this opportunity that's coming up, identifying veterans that are in need of housing, and that would be a good match. But yes, these are specifically for veterans only, and they will sit there until we find veterans that can be housed.
Thank you. And just some general questions now. The item is a comprehensive item, and I've admitted in the past that I'm not up to speed on the housing, but it's some basic questions. Has there been anything that the federal government has found that regional housing, or specifically Oxnard housing, has done something that these rules will be addressed or changed? Or is this simply something that as the time goes on, they tighten up the rules or improve the rules, somewhat mandated or versus discretionary? Can you explain that, please?
Yes, actually, that's a great question. For the past year and probably for another year. So probably for about 3 years, we're going to be working on really updating our policies for our programs in response to updates to federal regulations. So this is not specific to the city of Oxnard. It's called the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act. It was actually passed in 2016, and it's taken this amount of time to receive guidance on the different sections. It impacts about 13 sections of our programs. So every year, the Department of Housing and Urban Development is giving us guidance on how do we implement the federal changes that the government is making. To your point, for 2 reasons. One is to reduce to streamline the process, to be able to respond more effectively to our communities, and also to provide more clarity and more guidance for our staff on how to determine eligibility. But all of this is federally mandated. All housing authorities are being impacted, and we are being given about a year grace period each time that a change rolls out so that we can incorporate it into our policies.
Thank you for that. One last point that's near and dear to me. Is there any tightening of the rules or lessening of the rules with respect to compliance? The people that are in these facilities are legitimately in these facilities, or, checking? Is there any increased requirement, or is it basically the way it has been? We need to catch if there are people that are violating, which basically involves somebody making a phone call and checking because we don't have the staff to check it.
That's correct. So a lot of the tightening in policies is mostly looking at how we process eligibility as far as ensuring that individuals are eligible. It does provide more clarity for staff. Sometimes when the policies are vague, then it's subject to interpretation. But in this case, they are really helping us by being very specific on how to calculate income, how to determine eligibility. As far as someone not abiding by the program, in that aspect, it's not changing. I don't believe it's changing significantly. There are a lot of policies and procedures that must be followed. If somebody is reported for committing fraud, we will follow through, we will follow up, but we also have to be mindful that they also have rights that we have to abide by. We have to give notice, follow up. So in that aspect, I think there's still work to be done, but I haven't seen anything quite yet that's going to really solve necessarily a lot of the program fraud that could happen.
Okay, thank you very much on that. And I'll just share with you, since the first time I brought this up some months ago, I've been surprised how many people have reached out and want me to make sure I don't let that fall. Last question, and again, thank you for your responses. There is an item in here for working on an alley. Can you please explain and address that, and how does that fit in with the city, or is that a construction project? Is it public works? Is it housing? Is that maybe? Do we know where it is, or is it any specific alley?
Yes. So the submission of the plans also serves as a submission for a request of capital funds. Capital funds must be used to modernize and upgrade our properties. Each year, we submit a request for a little bit over $1 million. How much actually gets approved depends on congressional appropriation. Usually, we get a little bit over $1 million. What we do is we identify priorities in our projects as far as what we would hope to be able to modernize or if there's any improvements needed. Specifically, the alley that we're referring to is the one behind Colonia Road and Juanita Avenue. That alley runs right in the middle of our project, the Colonia site. And there's an elementary school nearby. So our understanding is the housing authority, in conjunction with the school, is responsible if there's any major repairs needed. And so what we're trying to do is earmark some money to be able to do some of the needed, usually there's potholes and stuff that needs to be done to improve, but that's what this request is for. It's, we're proposing to set aside about $140,000. If we are granted the money, it will be to make those repairs, but that alley is considered the responsibility of the housing authority. At least that's our understanding.
Thank you. And if you'll indulge me, council members, the last one is kind of a sensitive issue. We've had a fellow council member, Basua, who works in Wainimi with this, and she has said that they'd already been touched by the federal government on funds. Has anything happened like that you're aware of here?
Not yet. I think we're all, absolutely like Ms. Basua, we're all in the same boat. We are waiting to see if there's any cuts on federal funds. Every year, I believe we're always facing the same predicament on whether or not the programs are gonna be funded. What do we anticipate? Probably capital funds might be one of the ones that maybe they won't fund at the same level that they've done in the past. So the plan of action is that we prioritize our projects. And if something needs to wait for the next year, then that's what we'll do. But right now, we don't really have an answer. I just know we're all on standby, waiting to see what.
Thank you
the
very
update is.
much. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Parlo. Thank you, Councilmember Parlo. If there are no further comments or questions, do we have any public speakers?
Chair MacArthur, we have no public speakers virtually or in person.
Thank you. Councilwoman Perez, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly follow up regarding Councilmember Perallo's question around eligibility. My question is just, how often is eligibility assessed specifically for the housing project related to goal number 3, which is the Dolores Huerta Garden Project?
Meaning how often do we update it or?
Like assessed eligibility, like I know that folks have to be farm workers, veterans, how often?
Oh, I
'cause I know
apologize.
people can.
On an annual basis.
change-
Yeah,
Okay.
so if there's a project-based voucher assigned to it, we verify eligibility on an annual basis. Just from the project and speaking to their property management specifically for the farm workers, my understanding is that they will also be verifying eligibility on an annual basis. Someone no longer meets the criteria, unfortunately, they will need to find other housing options. So it sounds like they function similar to the housing authority, which is every year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question to Councilmember Perallo's. Have we ever run into a time where we have not been able to find a veteran and place them? Has it been a significant amount of time where we left a unit vacant?
Yeah, so right now, for example, we do have the Ormond Beach Villas project that is fully for veterans. And sometimes what happens is you do have vacancies that might take a little bit longer for us to be able to find a suitable applicant. It's not really the housing authority that identifies the applicants. It's the county with the Veterans Administration's office. Our understanding is that they also really want to make sure that they give wraparound services so that that veteran is successful. And sometimes somebody might need emergency housing, they'll connect the veteran to that housing, then they might no longer be eligible for what they call the VASH program or the Ormond Beach Villas project because now they're housed. So yes, there could be some length in filling vacancies, but again, my understanding is that they really try to make sure that the individual is going to be successful if they're placed. So yeah, that could happen. I think it's part of the challenge sometimes because we want to make sure we provide that supportive service.
I appreciate that, Ms. Lopez, thank you. If there are no further comments, I make a motion to move the item to council.
I'll second it.
Wonderful, thank you. Councilmember Parlo, can we get a vote, Madam Clerk?
Chair MacArthur, who was the maker of the motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Chair MacArthur,
Yes.
Committee Member Perallo,
Yes.
Committee Member Bettis,
Yes.
and the motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Thank you, Ms. Lopez. And unless there's a member that has an item for a future agenda, and there be no further business on the agenda, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.